Amen. Amen. Well, let me first say hi to those worshiping at the Aldershot site, and we're so glad that you're worshiping with us, and so thankful that you're indoors this week. And it's great to be at the RBG for this week and for next week, and then we're trusting that the Lord's going to give us a permanent site. Amen? Well, let me start by saying this. I have failed. It's hard to admit, but I have failed. So many times in my life, in so many ways, I have failed. I didn't want to fail. I didn't try to fail, but so many times I have failed. And I'm the kind of guy that doesn't want to make any mistakes at all. Like, I proofread my texts and my emails for grammar and spelling at least twice before I send them out, okay? I'm the kind of guy that doesn't want to make any mistakes, and yet so many times in my life and so often I have failed. I've failed in little ways. I've failed to finish my homework. I've failed to show up on time. I've failed to be nice to my brothers and sister. I've failed to clean up after myself. I've failed to learn from my mistakes. I've failed in bigger ways too, though. I've failed to keep my promise. I've failed to keep a secret. I've failed to keep my temper. I've failed to keep the law. Let me just say that the traffic laws and fines and insurance rates have reformed me in my life, but I've failed. You know, in some times in my life, I've failed big. I've failed to love God more than others. I've failed to love others more than myself. I've failed to love my wife as Christ loves the church. I've failed to do what God has called me to do and told me to do. So many times in my life, I've failed. And it's difficult to admit. It's difficult to stand up in front of people that you respect and you want to respect you, and that you love and you want to love you. But so many times in my life, I've failed. And the thing that gives me a little bit of comfort standing up here saying that in front of you is I've got a hunch I'm not alone. That so many times in your life, you have failed in little ways, and you've failed in bigger ways, and sometimes you've failed in big, unmentionable, embarrassing ways too. And the thing I know about all of us is this, that we don't want to fail, that we actually would rather be known as being faithful. That even though we want to be faithful, so many times we fail. And so we are starting an 8-week series today called Faithful. About a year ago, I was having a conversation with somebody, and they said to me, what is one word you would want to characterize your life? That if you can boil all the things that you do in your life and all the relationships you have, if you could boil it all down to one word, what would it be? And I thought about it for a while, and I wrestled, and I thought, man, everything down to one word, it was kind of hard. And so they clarified it a little bit more. And they said, what if you had already passed away and everyone else had to characterize your life with one word? Say they could only put one word on your tombstone, what would you want that word to be? And I thought, okay, well, if I had lived my life and then I had died, and so now, okay, I'm seeing Jesus. Oh, I know what I want Jesus to say to me. I would want him to say, well done, good and faithful servant, right? So I turned to them and I said, faithful. I want my life to be known as faithful. And then I found myself saying this, but I don't want to wait until my life is over for God to say, well done, you're faithful. I want him to say that over my life right now. I want to be known as someone who's faithful. And so I started to think of all the different areas of my life that I want to be known as being faithful to. I thought I want to be a faithful father and a faithful husband. I want to be a faithful friend. I want to be a faithful neighbor, a faithful servant. I want to be a faithful pastor and leader and boss. I want to be faithful to my fitness program, faithful to eating healthy, faithful to my personal goals. I want to be be faithful with little. I want to be faithful with much. I want to be faithful to give God praise every day. I want to be faithful in so many areas of my life. And as I started thinking more and more areas of my life I wanted to be faithful, I started to realize that I actually so often, even though I want to be faithful, I fail. And I found it really difficult because if I want to really be a faithful father and a faithful husband, then I need to spend time with my family. And if I want to be a faithful friend and I want to be a faithful neighbor, then I need to spend time with my neighbors and with my friends. And if I want to be faithful in my fitness program, that takes energy. And if I want to be faithful leader and boss, I got to be faithful to... And I realize there's so many things, there's so many areas, there's so many moments and relationships in my life that I want to be faithful, and it's really hard to measure all that. It's really hard to be as faithful as I want to be in all those areas of my life, and I realize so often I fail. And so, as we start this series, what we're going to do is wrestle with that tension. We're going to talk about how we can be more faithful, how you and I can fail less and be more faithful. And we've called this series #faithful. We put the little hashtag in front of it because we believe that we're not alone, that people in our community and people around us, they actually want to be faithful as well, and they feel like they fail in many areas of their life. And so we want to encourage them. So we're going to get you to help us tweet preach, okay? So we want you to use Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and if you hear something that God stirs in your heart that encourages you about being faithful or about how God has been faithful to you, we want you to tweet it out. My Twitter is @KCShep. You can tweet me right now if you want. Or @GT Burlington is the church's Twitter. And we want you to use the #faithful. And so if there's a phrase or there's a statement or there's something that God says to you or does in your heart, we want you to send it out because we want this to get out to more and more people because we believe that everybody struggles with this, that everybody wants to be faithful and everybody fails. And the message we want to make sure everybody understands is this: even though sometimes we fail, we can still be faithful.